Hey guys, this is the Roundhouse Report. Judge Roundhouse reporting. This is going to be about an Asian NATO-esque alliance system that I want to form with the United States as its backbone. Because China is increasingly becoming aggressive in the region with the South China Sea, with China building artificial islands on reefs and then militarizing them. You know, they're not putting houses on them, they're putting military bases, and they're lining the shores with anti-ship killing missiles, So they're expanding out, and they're being aggressive about it. Xi Jinping, president of China, who, by the way, was voted by the communist government, Politburo, whatever you want to call it. He was voted in basically dictator for life. He doesn't have, usually they have a 10-year time, a 10-year tenure. They're in office as president for 10 years and then they choose somebody else. It's been like that since Mao Zedong. So this is the first time since Mao Zedong that a Chinese leader has been named dictator for life. Xi Jinping is very nationalistic. He's very militaristic. He's kind of Trump-like. He's a big dude in terms of stature. He's almost as big as Trump. Trump's like 6'4", 6'3", 260 pounds. Trump's a beast. He'll beat you down. He'll beat you down with bars of gold. With bars of gold, he'll beat you down. All right. So anyhow, I took some notes. So we're having, this issue with China, and it's complex because you have, the trade dynamic, the two largest economies in the world going to war. That will never happen. But they said the same thing after World War I. War had become obsolete because there was just too much lead flying around. You couldn't do it anymore. World War II happened. United Nations began, et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, the members, I need help naming this alliance system. Now, I want you guys to comment and help me to name it. I was thinking maybe AATO. I'm trying to model it after the acronym, like how NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. This would be WPATO, WPATO, Western Pacific Allied Treaty Organization. That is technically what it is, but AATO sounds better. AATO stands for Asian Allied Treaty Organization. SWATO, Southwestern Asian Treaty Organization, but then I realized this doesn't deal with just Southwest Asia. This deals with all of Asia, that entire theater. And by the way, just real quick, right now there's something called ASEAN. It's like an economic alliance system. It's called the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Through ASEAN. Dissolve it. Make AATO or AATO or WPATO, Western Pacific Allied Treaty Organization. This is going to have the same general framework as NATO. An attack on one is an attack on all. Backed by, namely, the United States and Japan. These are the member states that I'm thinking. I'm kind of floating out. Some of these guys would have to be coerced and, using soft power, economic tools, economic aid to get them into the alliance. But I'm thinking, obviously, the United States, because it's in our interest to control those sea lanes. Over 1/3 of the world's trade travels through the South China Sea every year. It's important to control that. China has said that's our territory now. If you enter it, it's as if you're invading China. So not much can be done about that. It's a fait accompli. The United States, Japan, these are members of the new Asian NATO. The US, Japan, South Korea, India, the Philippines, Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand. By the way, in Australia, we just began a new Marine troop contingent deployment, an annual rotation. That's new for Australia. Papua New Guinea, their new government has, quote, invited Australia and the United States to open up a air and naval base on Papua New Guinea to help us counter any kind of sudden breakout from the South China Sea that China may make. So Papua New Guinea would be down for it. We would need to grab up Indonesia, Cambodia. We would have to grab up Mongolia. It's a northern buffer state. We can pay them off. We could do something. If you can do heavy investment. I don't know. Russia's a wild card. Russia doesn't trust China, and China doesn't trust Russia. But when it comes down to it, both don't like America. So my enemy is my friends. That kind of a thing. But a lot of the Russian war drills that they've been doing are geared toward China to let them know, hey, we're still here. It's not all against NATO and the United States. It's also they're doing stuff that kind of mess with China too. So we need to grab up Mongolia to have that buffer state in between China and Russia. Laos, Bangladesh, Thailand, Myanmar, which is formerly Burma, Taiwan. Now that would basically either guarantee a war with China within like 10 years, like guarantee it, or AATO would deter China from ever even attempting such a thing. Regardless, I predict that a war with China is going to occur within the next 5 to 10 years. Whether it's a sudden like 5-day flash war, you just wake up, turn on the TV, and it's like, boom, we're at war, what's going on? And it like ends with like some kind of negotiated ceasefire, or whether it's going to turn into a full-blown conventional, not nuclear, but full-blown conventional war. And that's where AATO / SWATO / WAPO, whatever, we need to name it correctly. I don't know what to name it. That's where WAPO comes in. Like I said, there are many variables at play with regards to China. Trade war, Xi Jinping, I think, is afraid and confused by Trump. I think that they're similar, and I don't know what Trump and him, what their dialogue was like at Mar-a-Lago or whatever Trump's little paradise palace is, where he had the Chinese president over. Xi Jinping talks tough, but he backs it up too. Like I said, he's nationalistic and he's militaristic. I believe that his slogan is China first, or no, the Chinese dream, seeking the China dream. But under Xi Jinping, he's been in power for about 10 years now. China has embarked on the world's most expansive military modernization, namely missile modernization and research and development program in the entire world, specializing in ship-killing missiles. This type of ship-killing missile that I'm referring to, you can Google this. I'm just going to give you the letters of it. That's all I can do. DF-21D. DF-21D. That's the first ship-killing missile that's ever been deployed, according to the sources that I've looked at. These missiles are part of the anti-access area denial strategy that China has, which is basically stay as far away from us as possible. Otherwise, we will destroy you with these missiles. The DF-21D, it's a ship-killing cruise missile. It's high. You're gonna like this. Excuse me. I'm gonna look at my notes because I wrote this. It's considered this missile is considered a high hypersonic missile. Not hypersonic, a high hypersonic missile. It has a speed of 7,000 to 19,000 miles per hour. 7,000 to 19,000 miles per hour. And if they're maneuverable and they shoot off 50 of them, that could kill a whole strike group. Oh, wow, that's fast. So that's the ship-killing missile that China is working on, and its range is 900 miles. So basically, anything comes within those batteries, those missile batteries, anything that comes within 900 miles is basically you're asking for trouble. You'll know that if you want, you could get lit up. It's nuts. Western Pacific Allied Treaty Organization, WAPO. Economic perks come with being a WAPO, or WAPETO. Kind of like European-esque, only real careful there, European-esque, an economic framework, intermingle our economies to a greater degree than they already are, with less reliance on China and greater reliance on the United States, Japan, and Australia, and also India. Establish an intricate network of all excuse my language. I'm just going to call it SWATO, Southwest Atlantic Treaty Organization, even though technically it's not, it's just all of Asia, but SWATO. Any country that's in SWATO, like the ones that I mentioned, we're going to establish an intricate economic network. Now, NATO requires every member nation, and we just added a new one, the Balkans. Some crazy dude, some tiny little speck there, but it helps counter Russia in the Balkans, which is good. I think that is NATO country number 29. It's either 28 or 29. Excuse me. An attack on one is an attack on all. They have Article 5, which has only been used once after the September 11th attacks. Article 5 was declared, and that's why you have NATO troops inside of Afghanistan, but not Iraq. Back in the day, back when we were actually inside of Iraq, although we're in Iraq again because we left Iraq. Very ironic. Insidious. Any country in SATO, any country in AATO, if they don't pay the annual dues, so to speak, that NATO requires every member state to pay, I think it's 2.3% of their annual GDP needs to go toward defense and toward NATO. If any country in AATO, the Asian Alliance Treaty Organization, still playing with the name, I can't figure it out. If any nation doesn't pay up annually, if they slack and if they rely on the United States to pick up the slack, year one, they're warned. If they fail to meet the minimum contribution requirements for the second year, they're put on probation. Now I know they're on thin ice. Thin ice. Do it a third year and you are booted out of AATO. You're booted out, just like how we should boot Turkey out of NATO right now. I believe that one of the main reasons why the United States is still keeping 10,000 troops, mostly special operations troops, inside of Afghanistan is to block. It's the 10,000 troops that we have in Afghanistan. There's a lot of Green Berets, a lot of SEALs, Navy SEALs. It's like a 10,000 man quick reaction force. Whenever the Taliban pop off in Afghanistan, these guys are they're airlifted in, dropped, and they take care of it, and then they come back to their base. That stuff's still happening, even though it's not reported on. But we're still in combat over there every once in a while. But I believe one of the main reasons that we're still keeping troops there, we're using it as a quick reaction force, is to block and or deter China's Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is going to be land-based and sea-based, but the land-based part of it is going to try to connect China with Europe, going through like Central Asia and the Middle East. If we have a 10,000 man army sitting right in the middle, that's going to block them from being able to do that. So I think that's another long view reason why we're still in Afghanistan. Although we are doing peace talks with the Taliban, who knows how much that has to do with China. China could be involved in those peace talks too. Because keep in mind, Afghanistan, there's a land corridor in Afghanistan that borders China, which is interesting. And Western China right now is on fire. The Chinese Communist government under Xi Jinping, and they've been rounding up Chinese Muslims of a certain ethnicity in Western China. I'm not sure what the name is, but they've been rounding them up and putting them into what are basically concentration camps. So today's China is kind of like, it's looking kind of like 1930s Germany. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a war with China. And regarding Taiwan, excuse me, I don't know if we should just give it to China and just to let them save face. But if we include Taiwan, we're basically guaranteeing a war. Or at the same time, we're guaranteeing not having a war. It's a little bit tricky. If we leave Taiwan out, that's going to tell China Taiwan's yours, and they will attack Taiwan, take Taiwan, and it'll make America look bad. All right, it's the Roundhouse Report. Please subscribe. Please visit me on minds.com. It's the alternative Facebook platform. It's better, free speech, no censorship. www.minds.com/Jody Roundhouse. One word, Jody with a Y, not an I. With an I, it's a woman's name. With a Y, it's a man's name. The women's movement hijacked it in the 19th century. Up until then, Jody was always spelled with a Y, and it was always a man's name. Let's make that clear. All right? Better not house out. No. Seriously though, watch out for China. Yeah, this thing's always messing up on me. You like my blue chair?